90% of your body's serotonin, the chemical responsible for happiness, is manufactured nowhere near your brain. It is actually pumped out right inside your lower intestine. For decades, psychiatry assumed mood disorders started exclusively between your ears. Yet billions of microscopic organisms living in your gut are quietly dictating your emotional state right now. When those intestinal colonies become inflamed or out of balance, they send distress signals upward through your nervous system that directly trigger chronic anxiety and unexplained depression. By the end of this deep dive, you'll discover the exact 4-step biological mechanism transforming everyday meals into daily emotional resilience or mental exhaustion. We are going to dismantle the $60 billion anti-anxiety industry's biggest blind spot by looking directly inside our microscopic digestive ecosystem. If you want the real science behind longevity and human metabolism without any medical fluff, subscribe right now. Let's get straight into it. Think of your digestive tract as a bustling metropolis containing over 38 trillion distinct microbial citizens. That is roughly 5 bacterial cells for every single human cell you possess. This massive inner population does not just sit around digesting lunch. These microbes are biochemical factories constantly churning out neurotransmitters that directly dictate how calm or agitated you feel. To understand this communication line, we must first examine the vagus nerve. Picture a high-speed fiber optic cable running continuously between your brainstem and your lower abdominal cavity. Medical textbook diagrams used to suggest your brain was exclusively sending commands down this biological highway. However, modern neurogastroenterology reveals an entirely different traffic pattern. In reality, nearly 80% of the messages traveling along the vagus nerve flow upward from the gut directly into your central processing center. This means when gut bacteria detect environmental toxins or inflammatory processed sugars, they instantly ping the brain's emotional circuitry with urgent biochemical alarms. Consider your gut wall like a high-security border fence made of tightly interlocked cells. Its job is keeping undigested food particles strictly inside the intestinal pipeline. When you feed beneficial bacteria dietary fiber from whole plants, they ferment it into short-chain fatty acids like butyrate that reinforce and seal those protective border gates. Without that daily butyrate supply, the junction proteins holding your gut wall together begin loosening, creating microscopic gaps across your intestinal barrier. Once that mucosal barrier leaks, toxic bacterial remnants called lipopolysaccharides escape right from your digestive cavity directly into your circulating bloodstream. Your immune system treats these escaped bacterial fragments as dangerous foreign invaders, instantly triggering a massive systemic inflammatory response throughout your entire body. Those inflammatory cytokines easily cross the blood-brain barrier and immediately target a crucial enzyme inside your brain called indoleamine 2,3-dioxygenase. When that specific enzyme activates under inflammation, it hijacks tryptophan, which is the raw amino acid required to manufacture stabilizing serotonin molecules. Instead of converting tryptophan into calming serotonin, your inflamed brain shunts that valuable precursor into producing a toxic neurochemical compound known as quinolinic acid. Quinolinic acid acts like a biochemical blowtorch directly inside your prefrontal cortex, overstimulating fragile neurons until they physically wither and lose synaptic connectivity. This hidden neurotoxic cascade explains why a patient experiencing severe gut dysbiosis can feel sudden mental fog and despair even when their external life seems wonderful. Now let's examine the GABA connection. Gamma-aminobutyric acid acts as your brain's primary brake pedal, rapidly slowing down anxious, racing thoughts before panic ensues. Certain bacterial strains like Lactobacillus rhamnosus actively synthesize free GABA right inside your intestinal lumen during normal digestion of healthy complex carbohydrates. When laboratory scientists severed the vagus nerve in mice, the mood-stabilizing effects of beneficial lactobacillus vanished entirely almost overnight. That landmark experiment proved definitively that specific microbes are not merely passive passengers, but active biochemical commanders dialing your nervous system's stress threshold up or down. Look at typical American breakfasts containing ultra-processed emulsifiers and refined industrial seed oils. These modern ingredients act like precision chemical weapons against friendly microbial colonies. Just 5 days on a standard Western diet slashes beneficial microbial diversity by up to 50%, allowing aggressive pathogenic bacteria to rapidly colonize your gut. Those opportunistic pathogens actually crave simple sugars and artificial sweeteners, releasing chemical signals that directly manipulate your brain's appetite centers to force compulsive junk food cravings. You believe those late-night sugar cravings are a personal willpower failure, but you are actually feeling the chemical demands of millions of starving internal parasites. We must start inside your intestinal wall, where specialized enterochromaffin cells produce over 90% of your body's total serotonin supply. These enterochromaffin cells rely on chemical signals from gut microbes to convert dietary tryptophan directly into active serotonin molecules every single day. But here is the fascinating physiological catch. Gut-derived serotonin cannot cross your blood-brain barrier directly to influence central nervous system activity. Instead, circulating intestinal serotonin binds to specialized sensory receptors on your vagus nerve, firing rapid electrical pulses straight up into your brainstem. When your microbiome becomes depleted, dietary tryptophan gets hijacked away from healthy serotonin synthesis and diverted down a dangerous alternate metabolic pathway. Inflammatory cytokines activate an enzyme called IDU, turning your tryptophan into quinolinic acid, a potent neurotoxin that directly damages brain tissue. This toxic kynurenine shunt explains why chronic intestinal inflammation consistently manifests as stubborn, treatment-resistant anxiety and profound emotional exhaustion in patients. To block that toxic shunt, your brain relies on short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, created when specific bacteria ferment soluble dietary fiber. Butyrate acts as a powerful molecular switch, inhibiting histone deacetylase to unlock genes that produce brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Think of BDNF as essential fertilizer for your hippocampus, repairing damaged synaptic connections and actively growing new neurons to preserve mental clarity. Without adequate butyrate-producing bacterial strains like Faecalibacterium, your BDNF production drops sharply, leaving your hippocampus vulnerable to physical shrinkage under chronic stress. Short-chain fatty acids also maintain structural integrity inside your head by tightening specific junction proteins like claudin-5 along your blood-brain barrier. When dysbiosis starves these neural gates of butyrate, microscopic gaps open across your blood-brain barrier within just 72 hours of poor dietary intake. This structural breach allows systemic inflammatory toxins and circulating metabolic waste to flood delicate brain tissue, triggering widespread neural alarm signals. The most destructive toxin breaching this compromised barrier is lipopolysaccharide, or LPS, an aggressive endotoxin coating the outer membranes of gram-negative intestinal bacteria. Injecting just one single microgram of circulating LPS endotoxins into laboratory subjects triggers rapid sickness behavior, profound apathy and acute emotional withdrawal. Once LPS infiltrates your brain tissue, it docks directly onto toll-like receptor 4 on microglia, which act as your resident neural immune sentinels. Those activated microglia stop performing routine synaptic cleanup and instead unleash a localized cytokine storm right inside your prefrontal cortex. This localized microglial attack disrupts dopamine receptor signaling, instantly killing your motivation and making ordinary daily tasks feel completely exhausting. What you experience as debilitating brain fog and emotional burnout is often not a psychological deficit, but active neuroinflammation driven by gut endotoxemia. To halt this neuroinflammatory loop, specific psychobiotic strains like Lactobacillus rhamnosus directly modulate GABA receptor expression inside your central amygdala. By restructuring GABA-A receptor subunits, this exact bacterial strain functions like a natural biological sedative, calming hyperactive stress circuits without chemical dependency. Simultaneously, strains like Bifidobacterium longum suppress adrenal cortisol production, preventing your hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis from overreacting to daily environmental triggers. However, these delicate beneficial psychobiotics cannot survive inside your digestive tract if modern food emulsifiers continually strip away your protective intestinal mucus layer. Common additives like polysorbate 80 act like biological detergents, dissolving that thick mucosal shield and exposing epithelial cells to direct bacterial invasion. When epithelial tissue erodes, localized mast cells trigger chronic histamine release right at the intestinal border, launching another sneaky pathway to brain fog. Excess circulating histamine crosses into the brain and binds to H3 receptors on cortical neurons, impairing verbal memory, mental focus, and executive function. You can shut down this destructive histamine cascade and rebuild your gut barrier by nourishing keystone species like Akkermansia mucinophila. Akkermansia feeds directly on mucin proteins, stimulating goblet cells to produce a thicker mucosal layer that blocks LPS endotoxins from escaping into circulation. To rapidly multiply your Akkermansia population, you need a precise nutritional protocol utilizing specific dietary polyphenols and targeted prebiotic fibers starting tomorrow morning. Beyond serotonin, your beneficial gut microbes produce short-chain fatty acids that actively cross over your blood-brain barrier to regulate daily mood. When those beneficial bacteria ferment dietary fiber in your colon, they generate butyrate, the most powerful chemical messenger influencing mental resilience. Once butyrate reaches your brain, it acts as a molecular switch, directly shutting down genes responsible for triggering chronic neuroinflammation. However, when crucial butyrate-producing strains like Faecalibacterium drop below healthy levels, that protective anti-inflammatory signal instantly vanishes from your central nervous system. Without adequate butyrate feeding your intestinal wall, the microscopic cells lining your gut begin starving and losing their protective mucus layer. This cellular starvation triggers the release of zonulin, a problematic protein that unzips the tight junctions sealing your intestinal barrier closed. The moment tight junctions break apart, toxic bacterial fragments called lipopolysaccharides escape from your digestive tract directly into your bloodstream. Your immune system detects these circulating bacterial toxins and responds by launching a massive cytokine storm throughout your entire vascular system. These inflammatory cytokines rush straight to your blood-brain barrier, commanding specialized brain immune cells known as microglia to switch into attack mode. Instead of calmly defending your neural network, those hyperactive microglia begin destroying vital synaptic connections directly inside your prefrontal cortex. Such targeted loss of synapses in your prefrontal cortex rapidly degrades your emotional regulation, leaving you feeling chronically overwhelmed and irritable. At the exact same time, brain inflammation forces your neural circuits to slash production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. Deprived of adequate BDNF to repair cell damage, your memory center actually shrinks, which directly fuels persistent anxiety and deep depressive episodes. To make matters even worse, circulating lipopolysaccharide endotoxins hijack how your brain processes tryptophan, pulling it completely away from normal serotonin creation. Rather than building stabilizing serotonin, your brain converts that hijacked tryptophan into quinolinic acid, a potent neurotoxin that overexcites brain tissue. That excess quinolinic acid overstimulates your NMDA receptors, creating neural excitotoxicity that drains your mental energy and causes severe brain fog. Crucially, this underlying biochemical hijacking explains precisely why standard SSRI medications frequently fall short whenever chronic intestinal permeability remains completely untreated by doctors. If leaky gut continuously dumps endotoxins into your blood, attempting to boost brain serotonin alone is like mopping the floor during a hurricane. Let us examine the exact modern food additives driving this widespread intestinal destruction across the entire American population right now. Common industrial emulsifiers like polysorbate 80, acting like detergent, literally strip away the protective gel layer defending your intestinal lining. After that protective mucus shield dissolves, opportunistic microbes shift behaviors and begin eating your actual intestinal surface just to survive. Furthermore, consuming excessive high-fructose corn syrup feeds inflammatory Enterobacter strains while drastically depleting the beneficial bifidobacteria populations required for daily emotional stability. As those beneficial bacterial populations crash, your gut produces far less acetate, depriving your vagus nerve of critical electrical pacing signals. Whenever vagal tone drops, your nervous system loses its natural braking mechanism, allowing stress hormones like cortisol to spike uncontrollably. Those elevated circulating cortisol levels then travel straight down to your colon, killing off resilient microbial strains and worsening gut dysbiosis. You end up trapped in a destructive biological loop where emotional stress destroys your microbiome, and microbiome damage amplifies your stress. Fortunately, precise clinical trials demonstrate that targeted microbiome protocol adjustments can completely halt this neuroinflammatory cycle within just 30 days. Reintroducing specific psychobiotic strains like Lactobacillus rhamnosus directly sends calming electrical feedback up your vagus nerve, rapidly quieting an overactive amygdala. Meanwhile, consuming polyphenol-rich prebiotic fibers feeds depleted Akkermansia populations, rapidly sealing microscopic intestinal tears and stopping toxic endotoxins from leaking. With your gut barrier repaired and butyrate levels rebounding, your hippocampus resumes BDNF production, allowing damaged neural circuits to heal and stabilize. While chronic inflammation sets the stage for depression, the real daily culprit is hidden right inside our modern grocery aisle. Take commercial emulsifiers like polysorbate 80, added to keep packaged foods shelf-stable and perfectly smooth for months on end. These chemicals act like harsh detergents inside your digestive tract, scouring away the protective mucus layer guarding your intestinal walls. Once that mucosal barrier thins out, opportunistic bacteria press directly against the delicate lining, triggering an immediate localized immune panic. That panic signals your adrenal glands to pump out cortisol, keeping your brain trapped in a relentless state of high alert. Artificial sweeteners like sucralose pose an even stranger threat by directly starving out our most precious colonies of beneficial, mood-regulating microbes. Without adequate glucose or fiber to feed on, surviving bacteria shift their metabolic gears and begin consuming our own protective gut lining. This internal self-cannibalization rapidly accelerates systemic endotoxin leakage, directly fueling the exact neuroinflammation that manifests as stubborn brain fog and anxiety. Fortunately, scientists have recently uncovered a specialized class of beneficial bacteria capable of reversing this neurological damage, known as psychobiotics. One standout therapeutic strain is Lactobacillus rhamnosus, which actively reshapes how our central nervous system processes and responds to acute daily stressors. In landmark neuroscience studies, this specific microbe stimulated the production of calming GABA receptors along the entire length of the vagus nerve. When researchers severed that critical vagus connection in laboratory models, the dramatic anxiety-reducing benefits of the bacteria vanished instantly and completely. This definitive proof confirmed that intestinal microbes send direct electrical signals straight up into the emotional centers of human brains. Another powerful psychobiotic player is Bifidobacterium longum, proven in human trials to lower baseline cortisol levels during high-stress mental tasks. Brain scans of subjects supplemented with this strain revealed significantly reduced hyperactivity inside the amygdala, our brain's primary fear and alarm center. Put simply, having the right bacterial balance acts like a natural biological brake against overwhelming feelings of panic and psychological strain. Beyond specific strains, our microbiome operates on a strict internal clock that heavily dictates our daily mood and energy fluctuations. Gut bacteria actually anticipate breakfast and dinner, shifting their population dominance and metabolic output depending on the exact time of day. When you eat heavy meals late at night, you force diurnal bacteria to stay awake when they should be dormant and repairing. This profound circadian disruption causes a sharp drop in overnight short-chain fatty acid production, directly impairing your morning dopamine and motivation synthesis. That explains why a late-night junk food binge often leaves you feeling emotionally flat, irritable, and lethargic the entire next morning. To keep this delicate gut-brain loop running smoothly, your microbial colonies demand a consistent daily influx of specific fermentable fibers. Enter resistant starch, a unique carbohydrate found in cool potatoes and unripe bananas that completely escapes digestion in the upper stomach. When this resistant starch finally reaches the colon intact, specialized microbes ferment it directly into butyrate, our brain's favorite neuroprotective compound. High circulating butyrate levels cross into the central nervous system to stimulate brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, inside the hippocampus. Think of BDNF as high-octane fertilizer that rapidly regrows synaptic connections damaged by months of chronic emotional stress and anxiety. In fact, individuals struggling with severe clinical depression almost universally exhibit drastically depleted levels of both intestinal butyrate and hippocampal BDNF. Polyphenols from deep purple foods like blueberries and pomegranates act as another selective fuel source that exclusively nourishes these butyrate producers. Pathogenic bacteria cannot break down these complex antioxidant molecules, allowing beneficial strains to multiply rapidly and crowd out inflammatory invaders. Now that we understand precisely which chemical culprits and target molecules dictate your mood, we can construct the ultimate gut healing protocol. Gut bacteria produce 90% of serotonin, a neurotransmitter regulating mood. This serotonin is made in the gut, not the brain, as commonly thought. Certain bacteria, like bifidobacterium, boost serotonin levels. A $10 billion industry sells mood-boosting supplements, often ineffective. Fiber-rich foods, costing $1 per serving, can be just as effective. The gut-brain axis is a two-way communication network. Stress signals from the brain alter gut bacteria composition. This altered composition can lead to mood disorders. Probiotics can restore balance, improving mood in 70% of cases. Psychobiotics, a new class of probiotics, target mental health. They can decrease symptoms of anxiety by 50%. The gut and brain are connected via the vagus nerve. This nerve transmits signals influencing mood and cognitive function. A healthy gut microbiome is key to a healthy mood. Diet and lifestyle changes can alter the microbiome in 24 hours. Incorporating fermented foods can boost beneficial bacteria. Exercise increases the diversity of gut bacteria by 20%. Sleep deprivation can disrupt the gut-brain axis. Getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep supports a healthy microbiome. Stress management techniques like meditation also help. Meditation can reduce stress hormones, supporting gut health. A daily $5 investment in gut health can yield long-term benefits. This investment can lead to improved mood and cognitive function. The connection between gut health and mood is bidirectional. A healthy mood supports a healthy gut, and vice versa. Breaking this cycle requires a holistic approach. Diet, lifestyle, and stress management all play a role. Small changes, like increasing fiber intake, can have a big impact. The gut-mood connection is complex but manageable. By understanding this connection, you can take control of your mood. Your gut microbes operate on a strict circadian clock, meaning late-night snacking disrupts neural signaling and directly impairs morning dopamine synthesis. Restricting your daily food intake to a 10-hour daytime window allows Akkermansia bacteria to repair your protective intestinal mucus layer while you sleep overnight. To diversify those psychobiotic strains, aim for 30 distinct plant varieties weekly, because different fibers feed specific microbes responsible for manufacturing GABA and calming anxiety. Pair those diverse fibers with polyphenol-rich foods like dark berries and extra virgin olive oil to directly suppress neuroinflammatory cytokines like interleukin-6 across your bloodstream. Simultaneously, watch out for chronic acid blockers and over-the-counter painkillers, which rapidly shift intestinal pH and can decimate your serotonin-producing bacterial colonies within 48 hours. Also, skip overpriced commercial probiotic capsules if you lack dietary prebiotic fiber, because introduced strains simply pass through without colonizing or enhancing your vagal signaling. Instead, consume unpasteurized fermented foods like kefir and sauerkraut daily to introduce active living cultures that systematically lower circulating C-reactive protein and fight brain fog. Beyond diet, consistent resistance training accelerates intestinal transit time and elevates circulating butyrate levels, providing immediate clean metabolic fuel for both colonocytes and brain neurons. You must also actively manage mental stress, because elevated cortisol physically loosens epithelial tight junctions, proving that psychological tension directly feeds back to damage your gut. To counteract that cortisol spike, practice diaphragmatic breathing before meals to activate parasympathetic vagal tone, which optimizes nutrient extraction and boosts localized neurotransmitter secretion. Because your intestinal lining regenerates every 5 days, implementing this comprehensive protocol begins shifting your mood, energy, and mental clarity within just 2 short weeks. Ultimately, that persistent low-grade anxiety isn't just in your head. It is the direct biochemical feedback loop of your gut ecosystem, and you control the switches. Like this video to support actionable longevity science, comment your favorite fermented food below, and subscribe. I am Dr. Alex, and next week we expose artificial sweeteners.